We have officially reached the worst part of the FlatOut marathon. FlatOut free chaos and destruction. Every FlatOut fan talks about how FlatOut free chaos and destruction ruined the entire franchise and how it's the worst game on Steam. Joke's on you! At the time of me making this video, FlatOut free chaos and destruction is currently the 4th worst game on Steam. Yes, there are free games that are worse than FlatOut free. So no, FlatOut free chaos and destruction is not the worst game on Steam, but what about that first part? You know, FlatOut free ruined the entire franchise? Don't worry about that part, because in this video we're going to be answering the question, how bad is FlatOut free chaos and destruction really? Hi everyone, as always Patrick here. If you're already subscribed, make sure you turn on notifications, otherwise YouTube won't tell you if I posted anything. If you are new to the channel, make sure you watch until the very end and consider subscribing if you like it. Okay, FlatOut free chaos and destruction. FlatOut free chaos and destruction was developed by Team 6 and published by Strategy First. Oh look, a new developer. Did the developer really mess everything up that badly? Well, let's just find out, shall we? First things first, let's talk about the graphics. The game came out in 2011, and for a game released in 2011, graphically the game looks bad. Very bad. Low quality textures, bad special effects, particle effects are almost non-existent, and more bad stuff. Basically, the graphics are very muddy and not nice to look at. To prove my point, let's compare the graphics of FlatOut free chaos and destruction to other racing games that were also released in 2011, including some small unknown titles. In 2011, we had racing games like Dakar 2011, and that's a fan-made Dakar game, not an official one, by the way. Off-Road Racers, Cars 2 the video game, WRC2, Sim Raceway, Need for Speed The Run, Driver San Francisco, Test Drive Unlimited 2, and of course, Dirt Free. Every single game I've just mentioned looks graphically way better than FlatOut free chaos and destruction. Not to mention, they are also more playable, but I'll talk about that in the gameplay section of the video. Now I know what you're thinking. Oh come on, this doesn't look that bad for 2011. I'll just say this. Did I mention that 2011 also saw the release of Dirt Free? You know, the best looking racing game of 2011? Yeah, there's no way to defend FlatOut Free's graphics. Maybe the graphical options can redeem the game's graphics? Let's see, the game supports widescreen resolutions with small issues like stretched HUD elements. That's something. The frame rate is unlimited if you turn off target frame rate in the options. That's cool. What else? There are also basic options you can choose. Okay, you know what? No, the options are just as bad. Almost every important graphical option is missing in this game. No VSync, no anti-aliasing, no anisotropic filtering, and of course no FOV slider. To make things worse, there are no workarounds for those options. Trust me, no one wants to fix this game. Why? You'll see why. Maybe the optimization can redeem the graphics? No. No, it can't. You can't see it in my footage because I got lucky, but the game likes to lag, the game likes to stutter, and most importantly, the game really likes to crash. It can crash at any given moment. So basically, this game is just a one giant error. So yeah, the graphics are a mess. Maybe the story is better. Well, there's no story in FlatOut 3, just like in the previous FlatOut games. I guess this is better than bad graphics. I don't know anymore. I guess it's time to talk about the gameplay, huh? Well, this is gonna be fun. Let's start off with the damage model. The damage model in FlatOut 3 Chaos and Destruction is bad. Not horrible, or should I say not entirely horrible, but it's still bad. The cars get dents and scratches, the parts can fall off, but that's pretty much it. Not to mention it also looks bad somehow. It's hard to explain, but I think that's because the crashes in this game, or just crashing into stuff in this game, doesn't feel impactful, like at all. Mechanical damage is non-existent. No matter how hard you crash your car into something, mechanically your car will work just as new. Or at the very least you won't be able to feel the difference. You can crash into other cars, you can crash into brick walls, and the damage model can just not work for some reason. What I mean by that is you can crash into literally anything and nothing happens. You just don't take damage. The damage model also doesn't work. You don't get any dents, you don't get any scratches, parts aren't flying off. It's very inconsistent. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. There is also no momentum transfer when crashing into stuff. So the damage model doesn't work sometimes, looks bad and feels bad. I mean, even Burnout 3 Takedown, a game from 2004, has better damage modeling than this. But let's be honest, this isn't a fair comparison. Burnout 3 Takedown has the benefit of being a good game, which this game isn't. But enough about that. Now it's time to talk about the physics. The physics are bad, just like the damage model. The physics are also inconsistent, just like the damage model. And at times the physics are completely broken. Again, just like the damage model. And just like the damage model, it's hard for me to describe, so I'm going to describe it by describing, I don't know, hitting an opponent's car or something? I really don't know. But anyway, hitting an opponent's car at full speed hardly does any damage to it, yet slight taps and grinds can sometimes do up to 40% damage to your car, when it obviously should be the full speed collision that does the most damage. If that doesn't describe the physics of FlatOut 3 Chaos and Destruction, I don't know what does. Okay, fine, here's a better way of me describing the physics. Hitting objects and props feels bad. Every time you hit an object or a prop, it either disappears or it just breaks in a very unnatural way. Sometimes those objects and props are also pushed by you, but it's also done in a very unnatural way. It's hard for me to describe. Oh yeah, props and objects are also weightless, so hitting them isn't fun. I've just realized that I keep talking about props and objects more than the actual car physics, but that's because I don't have anything interesting to say about the car physics. Maybe that's because I'm not talking about the positive qualities of the physics, but I don't really have anything positive to say about the game's physics, only bad stuff. Speaking of bad stuff, another bad quality of the physics is the gravity, or should I say, a very strange gravity. Every time you use a ramp, and there are not many ramps in the game, the gravity has this very strong, weird and inconsistent pull to the ground. Now you probably think that it sounds confusing. It's not all that confusing, so let me quickly explain. Every time you use a ramp, you don't fly for several seconds and then just drop down normally. No, you just fly for like half a second and then the gravity strongly pulls you to the ground. You don't get damaged when you hit the ground, but this gravity pull is so strong that you can't even enjoy jumping off a ramp. But at the very least, this gravity pull is consistent. You always fall down quickly after using a ramp, and you never fly for several seconds. So at least this one thing is consistent. Actually, you know what? No, this thing isn't consistent, because I just remembered that there was a time, unfortunately I don't have any footage of this, so that's pretty bad, but I suddenly remembered that there was this one time when I wanted to crash into the building just for testing purposes, and when I finally crashed into the building, instead of crashing into the building, I just drove upwards. I scaled up the building, and then I got a lot of airtime, and then the gravity pull worked, and then I quickly fell into the ground, and then I didn't take damage. So I was wrong. It's not consistent. Is the handling more consistent? No, it's not more consistent. In fact, it's actually less consistent than the damage model. What made the handling in the previous FlatOut games fun is the sense of weight that the car has, which gave really fun vehicle control, I might add. But in FlatOut 3 Chaos and Destruction, this is completely gone. The car handling in FlatOut 3 Chaos and Destruction is completely weightless. You can't throw the weight of your car around the corners. You can't feel the weight of your car. And worst of all, there's no way to change that. Before you enter a race or a demolition derby arena, the game gives you some options. But what are those options about? According to the game, you can use those options to change some stats of your car. But no matter how much you play around with those options change nothing. Because of that, no matter what you do, your car will always be weightless. Another problem with the handling is the fact that it's unnatural. Remember the weird gravity pull that I talked about earlier in the video? Yep, that also messes up your handling. The cars aren't just planted to the ground, they are glued to it in a very unnatural way. Some tracks have small hills on the road. Every time you go over them, you are just glued to the ground unnaturally. Yeah, I know I'm repeating myself right now, but I don't really know how to describe it. Actually, wait, I do know how to describe it. When you go over the hills and you are glued, it looks like the car is just clipping through the ground. It doesn't damage your car or anything. It just looks like the car tries its best to phase through the ground. Sometimes the car even violently shakes when going over the hills. It doesn't happen often though, but when it does happen, it's very noticeable. The steering is strange and very unpleasant to play, but this time I can actually explain why it's like that. Like I've said before, the car feel weightless, or should I say are weightless. But not only that, they barely turn at any speed above 30 miles per hour or even 30 kilometers per hour, requiring you to drift to negate this, which itself doesn't always have you pointing in the right direction. Oh, and guess what? The handling is also inconsistent and very awkward. How do I describe it? Well, let's just say that the cars are sometimes oversteery and the cars are sometimes understeery. There's no in between. This oversteery and understeery handling seems to activate completely at random. When the handling style switches, the physics just break even more. Combine everything I've talked about before together and you get a horrible handling model. Maybe the cars and the tracks can save the game? No, they can't. Why? Well, let me explain. First, let's talk about the cars. There are so many car types in this game. You can use normal cars, you can use derby cars, you can use rally cars, you can use sports cars, you can use supercars, you can use Formula 1 cars, you can even use a tank. And every single car type in the game is horrible. Why? Let me explain. The cars react very strangely to collisions. You can slightly tap a wall and your car will spontaneously combust upon impact, but 120 miles per hour smashes or 120 kilometers per hour smashes will go unnoticed. Every car feels extremely similar to one another, and any differences between them are superficial at best. Every car has different stats, but like I've said before, they don't change anything. If you choose a car with the best stats in the entire game, it will still suffer from the inconsistent oversteer and understeer, just like the trucks in big rigs over the road racing. This means that the car stats are lying to you. For some reason, a lot of vehicles not made for most race modes can be used in other race modes, making them look out of place while also allowing you to unfairly win races. For example, you can use a knockoff of the Batmobile from The Dark Knight in speed instead of F1 cars. Similarly, the AI racers can also use out-of-place vehicles too, but due to their bad AI being only programmed to race in regular cars, they will end up getting permanently stuck behind indestructible environment like lampposts, or stop short of the finishing line instead, aka cars bad. Now let's talk about the tracks. Tracks bad. They are also very boring. There are only 2 track layouts in the game. The first one consists of straights connected by 90-degree turns. Really boring and not worth playing. The other track layout is just, well, derby arenas. Empty derby arenas. Some tracks do offer some changes in elevation, but 90% of the tracks in the game are just flat. Overall, every single track in FlatOut Free Chaos and Destruction is bland and lifeless, with no alternate routes or variation. I'm pretty sure you've already noticed that I am pretty negative in this video, so you're probably wondering, is there anything I liked about the game? Well, yes, actually. Before every race and derby event, you can choose a character. Every single character has a backstory, and every single backstory is actually interesting. I'm not going to talk about those backstories here though, you can check them out yourself. Sadly, that's the only thing I liked about this game. Time to complain some more. Let's quickly talk about the bad opponent AI. Thankfully, I can describe the AI in one sentence. Opponents are more focused on crashing into each other and you than racing, which makes most races a breeze if you manage to work around the controls and car handling. FlatOut Free Chaos and Destruction has so many game modes, but almost every mode in the game is a slightly modified version of racing or demolition. For example, despite the only difference being the car count, Derby and Big Battle are two separate modes. Why couldn't those two game modes just be one and the same game mode? I have no idea. Every sound effect in the game is low quality and lackluster, especially the crashing sound effects. The soundtrack doesn't work, and even when it does work, it's forgettable and repetitive. Remember the part where I quickly mentioned how you can drive a tank? Well, about the tank, once you unlock the armored tank, it's the same tank by the way, it is ridiculously easy to cheese a lot of races as its cannon turret can insta-end any car in a large splash radius. Additionally, since the turret is not disabled during the countdown to the start of the race, you can end every opponent before leaving the finish line and easily win first place. Lastly, why couldn't Bugbear Entertainment make the game? Okay, now we can finally answer the question. How bad is FlatOut Free Chaos and Destruction really? Let me answer this question by asking you another question. How would you react if I said that this game didn't make me want to drive off a cliff? FlatOut Free Chaos and Destruction is full of bad qualities. Yet despite this, I didn't hate myself when I was playing the game. My only reaction during my time playing this game was just me staring at my computer screen with a straight face. Yes, I did quickly notice every single bad quality of FlatOut Free Chaos and Destruction, but for some reason that just didn't bother me. I was just bored at best. Can I recommend the game? No. What a mess. Next up, FlatOut 4 Total Insanity.